Okay, we're here with John Lombard, who's running for Seattle City Council, District Number 5. Would you like to go ahead with a 2-minute introduction?
Sure. Thank you, Nicole. And you're all in luck. I've actually worked up a 1-minute introduction, so I have a little extra time for other things. But I'm John Lombard, and running for City Council to bring engaged, responsive leadership to District 5. Our current council member really provides none of that. I've been engaged with District 5 for 17 years as a community leader. I've demonstrated that I listen and that I lead collaboratively. Over the last 2 years with the D5 Community Network, and over the last 2 months of doorbelling, I've heard voters' concerns across the district about homelessness, affordable housing, property crime, transportation, and community development. These are interrelated issues, and I'm looking forward to getting into them in more detail in the questions to come. District 5 is a part of the city that's long felt neglected. I'm running to make sure that District 5 residents are heard by their council member as well as by the city. And thank you for the opportunity for this interview.
Thank you. And now if you want to flip over the set of questions that we have for you, we can go ahead and get started. We'll just go around the room and ask questions. Clayton, do you want to take the first one?
If elected, what policies will you support to address the need for affordable housing and homeless services?
So for affordable housing, I supported MHA. I support the accessory dwelling unit legislation that will be coming before the council later this year. And in general, I support the recommendations that the Seattle Planning Commission made in their report, Neighborhoods for All. That would include things like considering reducing the maximum lot size down to 5,000 square feet. District 5, I think primarily in the areas outside of your section, the 36th district, has many of the largest lots in the city. It's by far got the biggest concentration of lots, 9,000 square feet or bigger, so this would have the biggest impact in the city there. But also supporting things like triplexes, duplexes, cottage housing, not everywhere, but in a substantial amount of places across the district that would be worked out in discussion with the affected neighborhoods. And in terms of homeless services, I support a lot of the programs that the city has actually been expanding over the last few years. Housing that's combined with services, an emphasis on homeless prevention and eviction prevention, and diversion for families that can keep them from entering the homeless system in the first place. I definitely do support the housing first approach that we've been taking to homeless services. But I guess the other thing, I'm not sure if we're going to get into it, looks like we aren't with these other questions, is that I do think we have both a drug crisis in the city and a housing crisis. And I think the city's neglected the drug crisis.
Ben, would you like to take the next one?
Yes. Seattle has the most regressive tax code in a state with the most regressive tax code in the country. Given the repeal of the head tax and the ongoing litigation over the city income tax, how would you raise more progressive revenue to help fund city services?
Well, I'll say 2 things. One, that the city is limited to, it's legally a subdivision of the state, and so it's therefore legally limited to taxes that the state would authorize. And I don't know that the state really has authorized many options at this point for progressive taxation. So I know, our local legislative district supports that in principle, and I would certainly be actively working with them and with the legislature to try to increase options there. One thing that we still can do that could make the overall system more progressive is when we do have new revenue sources. For instance, the possibility of congestion pricing on our streets, which definitely can have progressive impacts. That I would argue, that we should be combining that with either tax reductions or targeted rebates, with rebates being focused on the lowest income people in the city, so that the net effect of the overall program would be positive and progressive, even if the direct revenue collection might be at least somewhat regressive.
Thank you.
Given the city's reset of the Move Seattle levy, the upcoming expiration of the city's bus funding tax, and the planning for light rail through much of our district, what will be your priorities in deciding how the city spends its transportation funds?
Well, I guess first of all, I would be advocating, just as a general principle, much greater transparency about how the money is spent, in particular the city's own tax for expanded transit. That was originally sold at a point when the county thought that there were going to be massive cutbacks, and this was just going to help eliminate those for the city and maintain the transit service that we had. And then when the county actually found greater capacity to continue its transit service, we then had the option to use that money for expansions. But there's really never been, so far as I have seen, any clear discussion of, okay, this is how the city prioritizes the use of those funds to make to get the greatest advantage out of that expansion. And I can definitely tell you, up in the kind of broader Lake City area, where we held a forum that I convened with King County Councilmember Rod Dembowski and representatives of Metro and actually a representative of SDOT that was from that program. There was actually, a lot of challenge for them even to just give us a straightforward explanation. So transparency would be the first principle. I'm going to focus mostly on District 5 because it's the area that I know the best, where we definitely have the greatest needs, or at least where I know those needs the best. And I guess there, the primary needs are going to relate to, how do we take advantage of the new Sound Transit stations, the one at Northgate that's coming up, and then the one that will be 130th, and the 145th plus one will be in Shoreline, and we'll be connecting with that as well. And so I would want to be expanding as much of the feeder service as possible.
Okay. The next question is, how will you continue the process of reforming the Seattle Police Department beyond the expiration of the consent decree?
Well, I'm very happy that the Community Policing Commission has been now established as a permanent feature of the police department and part of the permanent city oversight of the police department. And I would be really looking to them for advice on ongoing reforms and additional reforms. I know that they have made a lot of recommendations on better recruitment and better training processes, so that we're getting a more diverse police force, and a police force that is better connected to the community really from the beginning, and then gets further training in terms of how they can be as sensitive as possible to community needs in carrying out their work. So I think those are still very much reforms that to the extent they've begun, they're very much in their infancy. I guess, let's see. I think there was another thing I was going to add to that. In District 5, we have it's really by far the most diverse part of North Seattle, and we do have an outdated precinct building that is going to need to be replaced. I think when we do replace that, we should be looking at either splitting the precincts or adding satellite facilities or both, so that we have the police situated and in places that provide for closer community relations and better community contact, as well as better response times. And I think that would end up, just simply by the community relationships that would come from that, would help address a lot of these same issues.
You have 20 seconds remaining, but you don't have to use that.
Yeah, we can go to follow-up questions if you'd like. Okay.
I'm happy to start.
Sure, go ahead, Jeff.
So you are running as an incumbent, and in your opening you alluded to a lack of leadership or something to that effect. I was wondering if you could take 60 seconds and more specifically talk about why you feel she hasn't done a good job or why she should be replaced.
Sure. Well, I talked about engaged, responsive leadership, and I'll talk real briefly about each of those three terms: engaged, responsive, and leadership. On engagement, Councilmember Juarez just simply doesn't come out to meet with the people in the district. I organized what is still today the only program that is an association of community groups across the entire city council district, the D5 Community Network, and the only public meetings that Councilmember Juarez has ever attended that have been open to constituents across the district are ones that we organized and hosted for her. In terms of responsiveness, all you need to do is a little bit of doorbelling in D5, and there's virtually nobody who's tried to reach her office that's even gotten a response, or a response that they've been happy with. And leadership, she is really just a non-presence on the city council. She just doesn't speak up at city council meetings. There's nothing that you can really point to other than what she sees as D5 that she tries to lead
Okay. Clayton, you were next.
As a follow-up to question number 4 regarding Seattle Police Department, what would you be willing to attempt a dialogue with the Seattle Police Department regarding the use of deadly force?
Absolutely.
As somebody who was actually in the Army for a little while and loitered about, it's a radically different world.
Mm-hmm.
Their use of deadly force seems a bit casual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I think the most recent murder or killing that the police were involved with was the Ozia Solistego on Aurora within District 5. It has happened frequently enough that is definitely a big issue. I have watched the video of that takedown and ultimate killing of the man, and it was pretty clear to me that the gun was not in his hands when he was shot, and could have been kicked away if there was a fear that he was going to reach for it again. I think we need to have that dialogue, but I guess I would emphasize that the dialogue, while it should include the council members to add extra weight, it's really more important that the dialogue be more directly with the communities that are being affected by those killings.
We have Ben and then Matthew. How long do we have?
We're still, we got started a little late, so it depends on how long you want to go. I would say we can probably do two follow-up questions at 1 minute apiece.
Okay, perfect.
In 2018, how many people were homeless in the county?
Well, I believe this last count, I can't tell you precisely, but it was 11,000 some. I couldn't tell you exactly.
And of those, what percentage of which were living in Seattle before becoming homeless?
I'm not positive. My understanding was that there were a lot of kind of sub-statistics that were going to be coming out a few weeks after, you know, the main number. If that was part of the original announcement, I'm not sure about it.
Do you think it's important for a city council member to know these numbers?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
So before I get into my question, I just want to ask a quick follow-up to Ben's. The numbers you're talking about, are those the one night count numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just gonna focus on the main thing I had a question about. You mentioned that the North Precinct, when that is upgraded, you may want to split into two or have satellite precincts. How much community input have you had before proposing that as an idea? Have you spoken to anyone else in D5 about that? What groups have you spoken to about that idea?
I mean, I've talked with the leadership of the North Precinct Advisory Committee about it. I've talked to, I mean, the D5 community.
Just point of clarification, when you say the advisory committee, is that the committee you started?
No, that committee is the formal committee that you know represents the community in working with the police.
Okay.
They hold monthly meetings that involve not just the police department, but the prosecuting attorney and you know a variety of other parts of the criminal justice system. And it also includes people from across the North Precinct, so not just District 5, but Districts 4 and District 6. I've also talked to, you know, the D5 Community Network is an association of community groups across all of District 5. And so I have talked to leaders of community councils across the entire district about that. There's very widespread support for it. And I've also talked to the chair of the Northeast District Council, which is basically covering District 4, and you know the president and vice president of the Ballard Community Council, which covers a lot of District 6.
All right. Actually, I think that's all we had.
Yeah.
We have to do we can do a 30-second wrap up, and then I'll turn the camera off.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks again for this opportunity for an interview. I really appreciate your consideration. As you consider your endorsement, I would ask you to reflect on how often the incumbent, Councilmember Juarez, has attended your meetings and how open she's been to direct questions and answers and discussion with all of you. If you're like the 32nd and the 46th, the answer is going to be not often and not open. If I'm elected, I promise openness, accessibility, and collaboration. District organizations are the lifeblood of the Democratic Party. I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I'd be honored to receive your endorsement.
Thank you very much. Thank you.